Welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson. Well, earlier I had a chance to talk with our good friend Bob Just about a variety of the key issues of today and about a new organization that has been recently formed called Democrats for America, democratsforamerica.com. Okay, let's join now the conversation with Bob Just. Okay, we're back with Bob Just and got a lot of things to talk to him about. Bob, the polls are all over the place when it comes to the presidential candidates and whether it's the left or the right. It's kind of interesting to watch all of this. But one thing is very significant. We are in an election cycle with personalities and responses to those personalities unlike anything we've ever seen. Whoever thought a self-made billionaire would be pulling 40% on the right? And we got somebody that's under a federal investigation polling to be the left. When I watched the Democratic debate the other night, I could only take about 10, 12 minutes of it because there was nothing new. But I stepped back and looked at it, even though there's nobody on the stage that I would agree with ideologically or philosophically. I stepped back and I looked at it and I thought, you know what, this is pathetic. This is the best that the Democrats can put up. They certainly have smarter people in their party than what's being represented here. What happened to them? They almost look like the Republicans a couple of cycles ago. I mean, it's pathetic.
It really is. And of course, being a Democrat, the one guy that I thought was even somewhat reasonable as a Democrat candidate was Jim Webb, and of course, former Secretary of Navy under Ronald Reagan, a war hero, and he dropped out. I mean, he didn't even last past one debate.
Well,
okay?
I don't know if Rance Priebus, chairman of the RNC, reached out to him and said, come on home, come back to the Republican Party. I don't know, but Joe Biden didn't get in. There were some other people that showed some promise, but you're down to this Democratic push to put Hillary up there as the nominee. Now, I've always said that she's in the race to stay out of jail.
But I never heard that.
You know,
that's a good one.
But I think what you have here is the possibility, setting cynicism aside, the real possibility of an FBI that doesn't like the current Justice Department, because the current Justice Department has been politicized and run by the president.
Yeah.
But you have an FBI agency that's going to live long past all of that. And their credibility's on the line. They are now investigators. In fact, they've upped the investigation. It is possible that she gets indicted. Now, I don't know if she's going to get, you know, committed.
Convicted, yeah.
Or convicted, but she certainly could be indicted. What's going on with your party that they would even consider this the best of what they got?
I think there's an element of rebellion in my party it's rooted in rebellion from historic traditional America, from the basic elements. After all, we are a Judeo-Christian country. That's our rooting. The Supreme Court in the 1890s even made a declaration in one of the notes of one of their decisions that we were a Christian country. Congress itself, back in the 19th century, I think it was the 19th century, late 19th century, researched this. So the party is my party is in rebellion from what it was. You see the movie The Candidate, which was starring Robert Redford, which was made in 1972. And Redford plays a young Democrat candidate running against the establishment of the Democratic Party. Okay, he's running in a primary against it. And they define in that movie who the candidate he's running against. The candidate he's running against, pro-strong military, strong defense, concerned about welfare going too far and weakening people. He's stating principles that the Republican Party would certainly recognize. Well, what does that say? Back when Redford made that movie, and Redford is socialist, I mean, there's no question in my mind about that. He made a movie that glorified Che, the communist of the Cuban Revolution. Redford is a socialist. you look at that movie and you realize that was the beginning, or at least a central part of the battle, where the party ceased to be a mainstream American party and started to become a liberal left party. So Hillary Clinton, back to your question, Hillary Clinton is the continuation of that rebellion. And you add to it the women's vote. I mean, Hillary Clinton doesn't represent the average woman. In terms of who she is and what she believes, she's a leftist. The average American woman is not a leftist. But they're going to try to convince women in America that, you know, just like they did with Barack Obama being the first African American president, they're going to try to say this is historic, this is women's chance to lead. That would be great if we could just have a regular, normal American woman, not a leftist. But that's the card they're going to play. And so it doesn't matter, Perry, just to finish the point. I hate to say this, I had a conversation with a liberal over a dinner party in New York just a few weeks ago, and I made this point about Hillary Clinton, her, you know, the problems she's having, her emails, and his response was indicating he'd still vote for her. She still would pick the Supreme Court justices. The left knows this battle is about the Supreme Court, and they'll vote for Hillary. They'll vote for Hillary no matter what.
Has the exposure of a ultra-liberal Barack Obama administration and the pushback now of it and the disdain for it, is that going to hurt her? Because she would be a continuation of that.
I think it is going to hurt her. I also think this attack, the terrorist attack in Paris and other terrorist moves, ISIS moves, the Egypt flight, I mean, all of these things, ISIS in general, is a problem for my party. And I think that Hillary Clinton, having been Secretary of State while
Can she get past Benghazi?
I don't even know if she can get past Benghazi, but the problem with that is that I don't know that the evidence will come out in a way that's convincing enough to the public for that to be the pivot point. But you can't deny that the Middle East is unraveled on Obama's watch. Hillary Clinton is already in the last Democratic debate trying to blame it on Bush, and that's going to be her play.
How can she defend? I sent an email to my daughter and to the president of Egypt within hours of the attack of Benghazi and said this is the work of terrorism, and then go out and defend a video for about 10 days, 14 days after the attack, which indicated that she lied to the American people while at the same time she told the truth to her daughter and to the president of Egypt. That is clearly now going to be a noose around her neck. How can she possibly defend what she has said when she's basically saying, I lied?
I think Marco Rubio pointing out that she lied in this situation, I think she'll probably twist it and just basically say that there were a lot of different opinions. She thought one thing in one moment, but then the CIA or the Obama administration, she had other information, and in the final analysis, they decide the video was right, and her comments to the Egyptians and to her daughter were just what she thought at the moment. She's going to look. What the left does, and what people like Hillary Clinton, what the Clintons have done, and whenever they're in trouble, they kick up sand, they throw up smoke, and they emotionalize the discussion, and she'll play the victim card, and you're just attacking me because I'm a woman. I mean, sadly, there are a lot of people that make decisions based on headlines and emotional decisions. And we have to remember too, Perry, not only is the media, the news media, on the side of the left, but the entire pop culture, the late night comedy shows, the movies, they're all on her side. So it's not,
all right, Paris, it's Europe's 9/11. It would appear to me that Europe has taken an arrow to the heart of their liberalism. They have to step back and rethink what we're doing here. It's obvious now that they've been hit right smack between the eyes, so to speak, at a level of disdain and hate and barbarism than we've ever seen. I mean, 9/11 was bad, no question about it. What happened in Paris, equally bad. But it is a result of a liberal philosophy that says, well, we can coexist, we can have Sharia law, we can have parliamentary rule. We can let the immigrants in, even though we know infiltrated into them are terrorists. We'll get them in. Well, everything will be okay. Well, all this now is blowing up in their face. difference. You have the president of France responding within 12 hours of jets flying over Syria and hitting a training camp with 20 bombs. You got Barack Obama saying, well, we need to work together and figure out a way to end this despicable dispute, and you know, we're going to double down, and there was no anger, there was no nothing. To me, he's an appeaser to what's happening, and we have this mess. The world is beginning to wake up, and it flies in the face of liberalism. It's got to say your policies don't work.
Yeah, and you know,
by the way, the #1 request by the women in France is to have a gun.
Is that right? I hadn't heard that.
They want a gun.
That is interesting. Yeah.
Okay.
That's. Look. It may be a shift. I mean, it may be a shift. There may be a political awakening going on, and we may be realizing that for decades we've been basically lied to about what the world is about and how societies operate. And you know, the progressive left, which is essentially, in my opinion, primarily influenced by atheism. In other words, their God is government. They think government is the solver of problems. They may claim Christianity or some religion, but they really think government is what it's about. They've been making headway for 100 years, basically, almost 100 years. This may be the time when people wake up and realize that there is a struggle between good and evil in this world, and there are certain basic principles. But here's the problem. It goes to the question of, do liberals always listen to what science says? No. And they don't.
Only when it adds to their agenda.
Yeah, so the point is, we conservatives, and I include conservative Democrats, we tend to think logically and fact-based. Whereas they're going to look at our facts and emotionalize them. They still want, you know, I think they have an appeasing mentality, and they think that if they can just be nice enough, there can be peace in the world, and we know better.
I got to take a break here, but I'm going to leave you with this question. We can pick it up when we come back. When are you conservative Democrats going to take your party back? When are you going to stop talking about it? When are you going to do something?
That's my
You're no
heart.
different than a moderate Islamic saying, well, it's not us, they don't represent us. Well, your silence is condoning it.
Well said, Perry.
All right, we'll take a quick break. We'll be right back.
I'm Paulina Leiser, producer of Focus Today. Thank you for watching this video, and make sure to check our other videos at theDove.us.
All right, we're back with Bob Just, and we're talking about a host of things, and I left him with a pretty pointed question when we went into the break, and that is, when are you, I was speaking to him because I love him dearly, conservative Democrats going to take your party back? Your silence, or at least your lack of standing up and saying to the liberals who have taken over your party, enough is enough, is no different than the so-called modern Islamic persons out there saying, well, the radicals really don't represent our religion, but your silence is allowing them to identify your religion. I mean, there's no difference. My mother, and I miss her dearly, my mother was a conservative Democrat. Now, she was liberal enough to make life interesting. But at the end of the day, she was a conservative Democrat. My dad was a hardcore Republican. Interesting combination. And she loved me anyway that I ran and became chairman of the Republican Party of the state of Oregon. And she supported me when I ran for governor. Yeah, no, love her dear. But I understand what you're saying. She was from that 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s era of conservative Democrats. Started to go soft primarily in the late 50s, early 60s. Things start to move. And she didn't really agree with that. She was strong Kennedy, but Kennedy was very conservative.
You read his inaugural address.
I mean, so
very conservative, yeah.
I think we're frustrated with, when are we going to put principle before politics? The left is run by a political agenda to socialize the world and to play right into the hands of the extremists. When are we going to say, oh, no, you don't? No, 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 my watch.
And there needs to be, very much needs to be, a movement within the Democratic Party, the rank and file membership, because the leadership is sold out leftist, PC leftist. I wrote an article before the election in 2014 called Democrat Voter Strike, Change Our Party Now. Yeah. And the basic principle of that is there has to be a reaction within the party to change the leadership. And the only way we can change the leadership is by not voting Democrat. Now, I know there's some Democrats that have been propagandized to hate Republicans so much that they can't stomach the idea of voting Republican. To those people, I said, okay, I think you're wrong. I think you should vote Republican to make a statement to the Democratic Party leadership. But if you can't do that, just don't vote Democrat. Because if 10% of the Democratic Party saw that what the leadership of the Democratic Party represents has nothing to do with historic America, has nothing to do with the basic principles of the Declaration and often the Constitution, and that we need to change the leadership of the Democratic Party. Well, if the Democratic Party ceases to be able to beat Republicans because there's a rebellion within the Democrat ranks, there's a chance they'll change their leadership. But one way or the other, just like your point about, you know, Muslims who may be silent when these radical Muslims are dominating the debate, we Democrats need to speak up, and not just speak up, we need to act.
Well, I agree. I just don't see it. I don't see it anywhere. I mean, other than you, I don't see it. I see that they've been intimidated into a corner of cowardness when they need to come out and fight back. Now, let me give you a couple things that help support where I'm going here.
Okay.
3 major Supreme Court decisions that has let me know that the church has disengaged from the argument. Number 1, when they took prayer out of schools. We sat by, we demonized it, we said it was bad, but we did nothing to fight it.
And that was in 1963, so it's a long time ago.
Then comes Roe versus Wade.
1973.
Okay, we did nothing. We demonized it. We are making a little bit of headway because abortions are down, but at the same time, we are reacting after the fact. We did nothing before.
We still helped elect Barack Obama, who was a die-hard abortion supporter, and we've got 2 Supreme Court justices because of his presidency, and there were Christians who voted for him, or Christians who didn't vote at all, which is part of the problem too.
All right, and then we go on, and the last Supreme Court decision was to redefine marriage. We've had those 3 things in our lifetime under the nose of a Christian-based culture that allowed it to happen. And now we step back and say, well, the world's gone to hell. It's the end times. Jesus is coming Friday at 4 o'clock. That's a lazy response. When are we going to mount up as the faith community and say, wait a minute, this is going to be laid at our doorstep. We are going to give an account for this. We can't blame anybody. This happened because we didn't get out and vote, we didn't register to vote, and we did nothing about it. And we're not even talking about it in church because it's been politicized. We're in a mess.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I'm encouraged by the Salt and Light movement. I'm encouraged by things that are going on. I was at a Family Research Council pastors conference in the spring. One of the local pastors, Denny Stoll, invited me, and I went. And I was touched by the fact that there are a lot of pastors that see that what's happening has to be responded to. How they'll relay that to their congregations, I don't know. But we are in a pivot.
I've seen that.
We're in a pivot point.
And I'm fanning that flame with everything I got. The pastors who are saying now, look at this principle, we have to step up. It goes back to this. Were our founding fathers divinely moved to create this nation? And did they get it right to begin with? Because now we're saying, I don't know, they got a few things wrong. The Constitution needs to be more liquid.
And well, we inherited slavery from the British Empire.
Yeah, I mean,
we didn't create slavery, we inherited it, and we eventually got rid of it.
Yeah, so, but if you can do away with the fundamentals of the Constitution because they're not relevant to our day, then anything becomes negotiable. And at that point, what we have known to be a Christian-based culture is gone. Please don't misunderstand me. I sound like I'm really down on the church. I'm not. I'm just saying, wait a minute. We've been called to be the salt and light. We've been called to be the thermostat, not the thermometer. We are to set the temperature, not to react to it. We've been called to be the head and not the tail. Well, we become a thermometer, we become the tail, and we're not salt and light.
Something that I think is worth bringing up in the context of what you're saying is that Christianity is a worldview. Christianity is a meta-narrative. It is a story that explains life. And in explaining life, it explains how to live life so that we can live it to the fullest and the happiest. So the challenge for us as Christians in leadership and us in the congregation is we need to shine that light, not just the gospel, not just the light, the offer of salvation, which is central to our faith, but we need to declare that we also know how life needs to be lived to be fulfilled, you know, and that comes to family, that comes to what is a family, that comes into the importance of work.
Okay, let me interrupt you right there, because there's one thing about what you're saying that I want to make clear. That's not outside the relationship with Christ. It's a result of a relationship with Christ.
Yes, thank you.
And I think where the church is getting into trouble is they're preaching all of that and then bring the relationship in. You got to bring the relationship in first, and then this stuff becomes understandable and palatable and actually a desire to work out. But where the church is getting a little messy now is we're preaching all the good things that Christianity can give you. Oh, and by the way, somewhere down the road, you got to repent and get your life right with God. Hello? No. It goes the other way around.
Yeah, but the thing is that I guess I'm trying to say is that we have to remember that when we're reaching out to non-believers, we are reaching them out with our faith, but also connected to that faith, the way, as the ancients called it. We can help them know how to live their lives. Right. And it's rooted in a relationship with Jesus Christ at core. We know that. Right. It's through Jesus that all of this was created. Right. So, right. But I think when it comes to the church being actively engaged, it's important for us to remember that society is declining because we're not making clear that our faith is also a way to live your life. A lot of people, non-believers, don't understand that it is how to live your life.
Wow, that's a great point. I never quite saw it that way, but because I think what happens if we're not careful, our response to the culture is seen as legalism, and nobody wants to be a part of legalism, when actually it's a contrast. I mean, somewhere along the line, you're going to hit a wall. And
well, yeah, we are. I mean, the whole society is hitting a wall. I mean, look at demographic winter. You and I have talked about that over the years. Even the radical Muslims are saying that Europe is going to go down because the Europeans are not having children. They're not even replacing themselves, much less having big families. And the Muslims are actually saying, the radical Muslims are actually saying, we're going to win this because we have families of eight kids, you know.
Well, I had a
and that's related to worldview, marriage and having children, and you know that is related to worldview.
Historic researcher on the other day who said that very thing, that the reason that these countries are allowing for the refugees to come in, hopefully that will build back up their numbers that supports them who they are as a culture, because they've allowed too many of their babies to be killed in abortion. Their population count is down. And that is a reason to let the refugees in? That's a reason to let the Muslims in and change your culture?
It's insane.
It's insane.
They're literally giving their history away. They're giving their culture away, they're giving their history away, and they're giving the core faith foundation of Europe, which is Christendom.
So, Bob, we're going into one of the craziest election cycles we've ever seen. We got a former Secretary of State, former First Lady, former carpetbagger, U.S. Senator, who's going to probably be the nominee on the left, who's under investigation by the FBI. We got a self-made billionaire who's become a bully, who basically bullies everybody that doesn't go his way, including his fellow Republicans. So he's broken the Reagan 11th commandment.
By the way, I have to tell you something. He says he's a counterpuncher. He's attacked Carson in some very ugly ways, and Carson has not attacked him.
No, and so we have a guy who all of a sudden is claiming Presbyterian to be his faith. God's the judge of that, but there doesn't seem to be anything on the faith side of the equation that would say he's our guy, but he is pushing back the nonsense that makes him the populist. That's our choice? That's our choice? Where is somebody that is Christian, firm, to lead this country according to the way that it was founded?
Well, I mean, I do think that that Cruz is solid in that way. I think he's solid in his faith from what I've seen.
But he's way down. He's pulling 9%. You got a guy up here pulling 42%. What's happened to our thinking?
Yeah, and of course, it is. I have to say, and you know, I know this is part of the problem, is that Donald Trump has a tremendous advantage now because of the,
I think the Paris attack plays right into his support.
The Paris attack, and also, of course, the refugee thing. And so his position of saying that we need to start treating borders like borders, we need to deal with illegal, his whole platform in that area is going to play into and just make him stronger.
You're fun to have around.
It's fun to be around.
BobJust at bobjust.com. If you want to send him an email, please do. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
BobJust at bobjust.com.
No, it's Bob at bobjust.com.
Oh, excuse me. Bob at bobjust.com. How many Bobs can you have? What about Bob? Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Perry, very much.
All right, there he is. What about Bob? Happy Thanksgiving, Bob. Well, coming up, we got a very interesting video to show you about where the refugees are coming from and what happens to them on their first stop. We'll play that for you coming up next here on Focus Today.